Alright, welcome back everybody to part 4 of this tutorial, and I just wanted to start by pointing out that Photoshop is fixed. The problem was not that I needed to reboot, and it was not anything else. What it was Camtasia. I had unchecked making the cursor editable or something, and basically it made it so it wouldn't let me do any kind of dragging or moving, and it pretty much took over my Photoshop. And I don't know what the hell. I'll be honest with you, I don't know why it would do that. It's pretty upsetting, but anyways, whatever. Piece of do. Okay, so anyways, let's get into what we were doing. Okay, so what we're looking at here is what we had done before with our second unwrap that was set up to type the word army on there. Now that Photoshop's fixed, I'm gonna have certainly a better time getting that to work. But what we need to do is temporarily dump that. And let's just check our channel info and make sure that there is no 2: map here, which is good. And what we're going to do is actually attach. Let's just collapse that to here. We don't need that anymore. And let's attach our whiskers and nose so that they're in our paint. Eyes and everything else are there. So what we're going to do is we're going to export selected, and we're going to come to recent items here to the recruit OBJ, which came off of the thing. I think I'm actually in the wrong folder, which I am. We'll do it here, recruit, and this was the original, so this one we're going to call this to paint, because this is what we're going to paint on. Save as, export, skip, done. You ask why I don't use FBX. Actually, you didn't ask, but I'm going to answer it anyway. It's because it's all kinds of screwed up. When you get it into Mudbox, your zooms and everything are just trashed. It is a piece of garbage format for doing this for some reason. I don't know why. So let's open this to paint object. It's going to come in and say, hey, you got things wrong with it. Let's not show flat lighting. You can see that it's got these high convexity things going on here. So we will go to display and hide the mesh errors. And the first thing I want to do is import our normal map. And in this case, I'm actually going to go ahead and rename the file. And hit the open. Put that in the normal map. I forgot to do something, and it thankfully highlighted that for me, which is that the nose and the whiskers were still on that other channel. So let's fix that really quick with a simple symmetry flip. Collapse 2, that should do it. Okay, I got rid of everything. So we'll export again. Export selected. Recruit paint. Hit yes, and export. And don't bother me again. Done. Let's get back into Mudbox. What we can do, I want to re-import that layer again, so I'll just select the mesh over there and hit delete. And I don't want to open, I want to now import. Keep this mesh. You can see it's got the errors again, but you can hide those simply. Some of the normal map stuff is going to need to be deleted, like on the teeth. Not a super big deal. You can see that the normal maps, are still, they're not going to present themselves very well here inside of Mudbox, but they will be fine. in the end, like I showed at the end of part 3. So what we're going to do is just start blocking out our color. So we're going to call this the shirt, and I want to go to my paint tools here, paintbrush. Let's drag our layers up a little bit. I do want them in a gray shirt. I'm going to go a little bit less than 50% or a little bit more, however you want to look at that. Important note here, you see that I definitely don't want that in the normal map. Nice new feature about 2014, you can say move selected to. Now that is going off my window here, so I'm going to move this over. If I right click, move selected to, and that will be the diffuse layer. Okay, so let me get that back into place. And now when I paint, it's working, but I've also got some stamp spacings and things like that. Now you can see that I'm actually using symmetry. This is not a good thing. The reason is if I say I want to do like maybe some shading, let's go 10%. When I paint there, I'm actually basically doing 20% because our UVs are mirrored. So I'm painting on both sides, which I'm painting over the same UV twice. So when you're doing this, you actually want mirroring to be off. And when I paint here, you can see that it still shows up on the other side. However, one of the things that we have to deal with is that it isn't exactly one for one. You can see that the other side's not updating until I tap the Alt key. Okay, just tap that and then it updates. So when you're painting on something that has mirrored UVs, you don't need and don't want to use the actual mirroring inside of Mudbox. So keep that noted. We are only really worrying about the right side of him. And what I'm doing here is just marking the parts. I'm not too concerned that I go perfectly to the edges, because what you do is you hit Alt-T and that will hit A, will flatten out your template, and now I can actually just fill in these segments. Just a warning, hell is going to break loose in my house in a matter of minutes here. When somebody gets home and the dogs go ape, I'm going to try to catch it beforehand and pause, but I do apologize for when the dogs start barking. Alright, so I'm done with that. I'm going to hit Alt-T again, hit A, and you can see that now up to my border, let's hide the normal map because I don't really need it yet, that I have a nice sharp termination to the belt, and I've got a nice sharp termination there to the sleeve. Okay, now let's do his shorts. I'm going to show the wireframe. I'm going to use a small brush with a hard fall off here, and I'm just going to kind of mark spots where I know my UV seams were, because it will allow me to paint across onto the legs, and just for the sake of not being lazy and not having to hit that brush, the erase tool, I'm just going to avoid it and try to hit partially down. Then Alt-T. Now if I just Alt and try to rotate right now, you can see that it automatically snapped itself back to the model. And so you hit Alt-T and you're like, well, let me rotate this, and it automatically snaps itself back to the model. And you might go crazy, like literally. But what you do is you hit Alt-T and then hit A, and now I can rotate around. So bug, yeah, I'm going to call that a bug. Now what I'm going to do is make a new layer. I actually messed up here. I forgot to make a new layer for the shorts. So let's give him some darker tannish, dark brown shorts for now. And I'm going to make a big brush, and I'm just going to blob on the spots that were incomplete in the unwrap. And then hit Alt-T and A. You can see I actually got some of his leg. Actually, I got a lot of his leg. So let's use the, oops. erase tool is not E, it is 6. I always seem to manage to forget that. Alt-T A first, make sure A, and then just erase here. And on the shirt, I want to erase, let's hide the shorts, I want to erase where I messed this up on accident. So my layers are only what they need to be. And let's show the shorts again. A, make sure you hit A every time you swap, every time you hit Alt-T. And erase that. Okay, I am missing a part here, so let's paint that in. Let's get a small brush, and what I like to do is make X's to just annotate. This is actually an old comic book pen and inking thing where the pencil artist, the actual illustrator, will put X's where he wants it to be filled in with black. Pay note here, I can paint here just fine, no problem, but look, there's a bunch of like spots here which actually should form roughly a triangle, or I can't paint, and I will address that in a moment. You know what it looks like is that the legs and the shorts are part of the same UV set. That sucks, because that means I cannot separate it myself. I have to do that by hand here. And I'm going to use the steady stroke to do that. I would go back into 3D Studio and split this UV and move it over. However, that is absolutely 100% going to break my normal map. I would have to import the UVs and then bring it back in and fix it, and re-export the normal map, which isn't going to be that big of a deal. But in this case, because it's not that big of a deal, and because this is actually all going to be kind of fur on brown, I'm not really going to worry about it, just in the essence of time. But yeah, you cannot use this Alt-T method on joined UV clusters. You need them to be separated. So if you have like plastic is going to meet, okay, I'm still missing some parts here. If plastic will meet metal, or cloth will meet fur, you definitely want to split the UVs. It makes those separations a lot easier to create, because then I could just go do this from a really far away distance. But in this case, I screwed that up in my haste. But I'm not too worried about it, because it's pretty easy to do that. But you can see how much time that took versus how much time the other spots pieces took, where I could just have a really big brush and just hit it from a distance. So good lesson there, and one that would unfortunately take too long for me to fix in order to avoid that. So we're just, and also you can see that I no longer have, if you look here at the shirt, oh, here they go. Alright, so I caught the dogs. So you can see here that I actually have like a fuzzy pixel edge when I look at this real close. But if you look right here, I don't have that. I've got a, no matter how close I get, a very sharp terminated angle, and the reason is because the UVs here are split, and the UVs on this thickness of these shorts are not split. So just a note there. Okay, that was the shorts. Let's get his belt. Figure we'll do that next. Battle. That'd be like Mario's version of a belt. Battle. Alright, let's pick black. My tablet's all rotated. And let's see if we can't mark us out some parts. There's the belt. I think there's 2 parts to it. No, there should be just the 1/2. That should have been the whole belt. And yay, it was. Okay. Let's get his nose and whiskers. It's going to be black too. This will be a little tricky. So what I'm going to do is, you see my brush is my size on the right. I'm going to make it really big, like about 50. If I zoom out, you'll see that should encompass the entire whisker. And I'm just going to try to hit that, just scrub until it goes black. And if I hit Alt-T here, it was these parts. Okay, they just need to be solid black. That's all I care about. They're too small to pick up any other detail. Now the nose can actually have detail, but I'm not real worried about it. Now let's get the tooth. It's going to be white, so I'm just going to hold Control and paint that. Normal map is not showing here. Yet there is some kind of weird blackness on there, and I'm not real sure what that is, but I'm not real worried about it because, like I said, it just needs to be white. Eyeball is going to be white. Okay. Make a new layer for it. It's a good idea. Let's get his socks. They're going to be green. I'm going to adjust all these colors later. These are basically just colors for me to use to figure out my areas. Alt-T when I got a good enough blob on there, and now I can just fill that in. Done. I think I missed a portion of it. Yep, right here is the top of the sock. Okay. Alright, let's do his boot. What's that all about? That's something in the way of my keyboard. Okay. His boots are going to be pretty dark gray. I'm trying to avoid the sole. Alt-T-A, zoom in. Here's a big portion of it here. Part of the rim there, there's the top. There's more of the rim, more of that there. We've got a piece here. I think that's the sole. Yeah, I don't want that. So I'll use 6 for the erase tool. Okay, the sole is not there, but I do want to hit that other curved segment, and there's you can see a piece that I hit there, and here's that piece. That should be the whole boot. Alright, let's get the sole. Solid black. I pretty much know what's what on these. I'll be able to find them in the shapes of the UVs, but I'll mark them anyway. Just draw a line across that. Alt-T, A. Makes it real easy to recognize. And that other piece was here. Alright, so boot, sock, sole. Okay, those layers are good. And the reason I'm separating them out, even though I could just change colors and go to a different spot, is because these will actually have different specular values, and it's going to make it easier for me later. Alright. I believe all that's left is his body. Tail and fur, I think. So I'm going to go down to the bottom here and make a new layer called it fur. And I'm going to drag it down to the bottom here, like that. Now let's just make them pretty lightish brown there, tan. And the wonderful thing now is that I don't even have to worry about it because all the other layers are on top of the fur. And I can just be blasé. And I need that because I'm going to be doing a lot of projecting on him. Okay. And then we'll do the tail. And the tail is obviously going to be pretty pink. Hide the wireframe here. And we are about ready to start on some of these details. Let's show the normal map. And I think it's going to come across pretty good. I'm ignoring the army thing. I can't do that here because that second UV channel is not going to come over in Mudbox. It doesn't recognize that. So now it's time to determine what kind of fur are we going to give him. And I have a fur here that I have been using on all the rats, and if I hit the projection brush and this stencil, and let me zoom out, move down so I can put the stencil up here, you can see that this stencil, I believe I got this from CG Textures. It's a really good one for doing this kind of fur because it's got some parts of very even fur in a lot of areas, and then it's got some dark spots, and it's got some fanning of fur, like curves here. I'm not sure how easy this is coming across. Let me show the visibility here. It's defaults to 0.57, but this is the texture. It's got some parts of matting and things like that in there, and I've found that this is really useful because I can just mix and match, and it all blends together real well. Like if I need darker parts of the fur, I can use this area. If I need parts to, you know, kind of fan out, like say this would be around his ears, that would fan out, and then I can do the rest of the blend on his head and whatnot. So a super 100% even fur will be handy as well. But the main thing about fur is its direction, the direction that it's going. And this looks kind of gross up here. I think that's part of some animal's skin. I don't know. It's kind of gross. But yeah, direction is an important thing. So if you can find a very evenly toned fur, like if this section of the fur here was real even, and it was like that throughout your whole image, and it tiled, because if you look when I go to show tiles here, there's no tiling here. I mean, obviously there is, but it's horrible. I mean, it terminates and whatnot. But I will be able to make it fit everything on the model nicely. So, let's give it a try. Make sure I'm on my fur layer here. And let's see what we can do. So, I'm going to rotate it to try to get a good angle. And right down his nose. I also want to make sure that my projections fall off is not hard edged, because that will show up pretty badly. So around his nose I'm going to use a little bit of a darker fur, and again it is going to be pretty difficult for me. Oh, and the other thing is you don't want to use a color because it will translate. You want white if you want to use your texture's actual color. We are going to have issues at the seam. There's going to be next to no way on Earth that I'm going to be able to hide that seam there, you know, down the center. And that's just an inherent issue. And part of the reason why, you know, it's kind of a worrisome thing as to whether or not you actually want to do your model mirrored, you know. But in this case, I'm okay with it because he's going to be in the distance. So now let's try to rotate that. A lot of times you need to move it out of the way, okay, and look at your model, then move it back, or move it into a spot where your eyeball can catch a piece and then try to match where that is on the model. This doing projection is, you know, a very good way to do things, but at the same time it can get awfully confusing sometimes, and your blending can get awfully difficult. So I tend to use flat here. I find that there's just less for my eyes to have to adjust to. Now what I'm going to do is hide the tooth, hide the nose. I'm holding V. I think I detailed how I'm doing that. And I'm just going to select these elements. And hide their geometry with H. Okay, hit 2, Q will bring your stamp back up. Now I'm staying somewhat light. Oh, and here's where we're going to address that issue here. Hard edge, I couldn't paint there. Real frustrating. I think the tail will be a good place for me to illustrate this issue. So let's go with a smaller brush here, and let me try to make a swirl going down the tail. I don't want to use the same color, obviously. Let's go with black. Now I'm using one continuous stroke here. Now look what happens when I get down to here. Well, hell, I mean, look what happened down the whole frickin' thing. I mean, to be honest with you, how is it even remotely possible if I can't paint everywhere that one can work like this? And the unwrap, it's solid. If I come here and I do it here, I'm kind of okay here. Not always okay in this segment. You can see it is allowing me to paint here, but it doesn't always. Sometimes it'll break here too. And then you're left with no recourse whatsoever. You're screwed. You might as well throw your computer out the window and disavow art in a digital format altogether. That's one option. The other, Control, Shift, and D. Oh God, that brought up Camtasia's crap. Let me pause. Okay, well, Control Shift D is a hotkey for my recording, so that's annoying. But it's just here, Control Shift D, add new subdivision level options, and what I'm going to do is uncheck the world, everything, and hit OK. Now Shift D, going to actually subdivide this model. You can see that my wireframe is getting denser. Do it again. I'm now at 816,000 polygons, and you can see that this area where I had these crazy long edges that were hidden are no longer there. And now watch what happens when I go to paint. I can paint. And everything is pretty much okay. However, keep this in mind. If I uncheck flat lighting, now look at my model. He is subdivided without changing positions. So he is now faceted officially. He is basically without smoothing group. So doing that will put your model into this state. However, it don't matter because your level 0 is okay and your texture's okay and your export coming out of max is okay. So everything else is okay. It's just while you're painting on this higher res version, it looks like a horse's ass. So just keep that in mind. That is how you can stop that crap where it won't paint on low res geometry across the hidden edges. Oddly enough, it's not. If you look here at this segment, the paint. Here's a polygon, like a single polygon, right? Right now it's a million, but let's look at it as one single polygon. There's going to be an invisible edge where two triangles are coming together. That is what Mudbox won't paint across. And it's been in this way since Mudbox, I don't even know what version. This is 2014. I know it was in 2010. I know it was in 2012. I don't even know if there was a 2013, but it's been in all the versions. And I've never heard anybody else even complain about it. I've seen videos where people are like, hey, I can't paint on this part of the model and stuff like that, and I'm like, well, I'm assuming you're looking at the same problem, but nobody's ever answered it. Nobody has come forth and said, yeah, we're aware of that, or yeah, we're going to fix that, or anything of the sort. So do they not know this happens? I mean, if you ask me, let's go to flat lighting. The main advantage of Mudbox over ZBrush is that you can paint on low-res geometry using your UVs. But doesn't that cease to be an advantage? I mean, is that just me? If it's going to be doing something like this, I mean, it works in a lot of the spots, but why wouldn't it work everywhere? Obviously, you know, it's some kind of inherent math issue, right? Well, I'm going to say it's a programmers, you know, are bad or anything like that. But at some point it's going to need to be addressed, because Mudbox's claim to useful fame, I think, relies pretty heavily on the fact that you can paint on low-res geometry. But if you got to subdivide it all crazy, why not just use ZBrush? You know? I'm not a... Well, I mean, I give you a million reasons why not to use ZBrush. It's a fucking nightmare. An alien invented it. Somebody who has absolutely no concept of user friendliness. I have so much respect for that program, and I want to be able to use it so bad, but I can't get over it. Every time I get in there, just navigating, just rotating the model, like how I can do this and just spin the model around. If I were to keep doing this in ZBrush, eventually my model would be over here, and I'd be like zoomed in, and it would be off the screen, and I wouldn't be able to find it again. Just being able to do this here infinitely is the #1 reason for me why I'm in Mudbox and I'm not in ZBrush. Okay? So ZBrush people, fix your freaking orbit tool. You say, oh well, there's a setting for that. Dude, no, just make it default then, okay? If there is a setting for it, don't make me hunt through that enormous list. Please. I'm getting a little uppity, right? I don't want to be that kind of guy, but yeah. Proponents of ZBrush. I don't even think that the fans of ZBrush can argue that one. Maybe they can. If they can, they can do it till the sun comes up. It's not going to change my view. I can't use that program for as long as I can't feel comfortable navigating it. So what I'm doing here is I'm just kind of filling in base. Enough about my ramblings. Just filling in some of these base furs, and I'm trying to maintain a general flow. It's pretty uneven. I'm getting dark spots on light spots, and it doesn't look great, and it won't look great for a little while. Again, it might look better if you have a better fur texture, but I actually like this texture. I can work with it. I don't mind that it looks all blotchy. I want my rats to actually be a little mangy, and that would be hard to achieve without a pretty mangy texture like I've got going on here. I don't really need my wireframe. I am keeping somewhat light on my pressure, but I do want to make sure that I am 100% filled in. So I'm only keeping light where I'm going over the existing part. And then I blend my brush a little bit out. So I'm trying to blend, but I'm not overly worried about it. I don't want to put that much effort yet into how clean everything's going to look, because I have quite a bit amount of work ahead of me on this process, and I know it because I've done it before. Like with any projection style painting, it does take a minute. There's not a lot you can do about it. By a minute I mean could be hours, but it doesn't have to be that long. Again, every place that I'm about to paint, I try to maintain a bit of fur flow so that it is going in the right directions. And I will be able to go in and fix the vast majority of the uglies. I'm also probably looking at different scales and resolutions. Now you notice here I got a little bit of like geometry going on. The reason for that is because this brush is hitting both sides at the same time. So if I use a smaller brush when I get closer to my mirror line, I will be able to slightly get rid of that. But like I said before, it will be an exercise in futility to even attempt to remove the mirror line, because the fact is that it's mirrored. So the more even toned the fur or whatever texture you use in rock or whatever is, the less noticeable that will be. So I'm just kind of going in with trying to avoid actually hitting the mirror line, although I can hit it very lightly. Alright. But like I said, yes, it is impossible to remove it entirely. But we can do our best to make it as less noticeable as possible, and at least so that it doesn't look like there's any sharp geometric edges there, and that's an important factor. Worst case scenario, I will need to up the resolution of this model to one more level. Now he's got a bit of a dark strip going on there, and I'm getting a little lost in my eyes. So I'm going to pull it off to the side and figure out where on this I want to match here. And I'm liking this segment here for right here. So let's go ahead and move that there. And I want to avoid hitting the edge of the texture. And I'm just going to lightly feather that in. And that gives them a bit of a stripe. I want to keep that dark spot there. The other thing that I am also trying to do while I'm doing this, and maybe I'm doing it poorly, but I'm trying, is to when I'm painting, I'm going down the edge of the my strokes are following the flow of the fur as well. So that way, if I miss and do a long strip, it's actually going to serve to look like a strip of fur that's at least going in the correct direction. That's an important thing. Let's see if I can. It looks like I have a bit of a unwrap issue here where my stretching and size is a little warped. I'm going to have to live with that if I don't want to fix that, and I'll be honest with you, I'm willing to live with it because this is a distance model. I don't think anybody's going to notice that from here. So I'm going to leave that as is for now. Move on to the arm. Now when I go to do the arm, I think I'm going to actually be going to benefit from hiding everything else. So if I want to hide everything but this arm, I can select it holding V and then Control, Shift, and I. That will invert that selection. Then I just hit H. If I hit W here, now if I want to resize that selection, I'm just going to tap V, and now I can resize the brush. I don't really have to worry about this because the fur is on another layer underneath. I won't actually be able to paint it on the shirt, but I'll be able to paint it on the arm because the shirt is above the fur layer there. So let's just run down this line a little bit like that. I want to stay within the center of my volume because, just as a note, if I go to the very edge, you get stretching. It's okay when you're first laying it down to do that, but it's not okay to go back onto the left side here where I already painted because now I just added stretch there. It's okay to do it on the right side. I don't know if that should make sense, but you don't want to break what you've done by having stretched projection across it. You can tell the projection brush to not paint at fall-off angles. But I don't really do that too much because it actually can make it so that you miss a lot and takes a little bit extra work. Even though it's stretched, it is still the correct color. So that's like an important aspect. Part of what we do here to learn and get better, part of being better, is being able to create your good results in a timely fashion. I do freelance work, and I'm in kind of a pool of artists on a few projects, and I was talking with the manager, and they're happy with my work, and you say, oh, you know, everything's fine, because I ask them, you know, hey, you know, you guys happy? And they're like, yeah. Well, sometimes I'll let it leak and they'll be frustrated with another artist or something, and they'll be complaining and asking me what I think, about something to help. Maybe they could give advice to the artist. And one of the times they were like, I don't understand this artist, their portfolio was so nice, but what we got back from them on this project was just beyond awful, and I don't get it. And the thing is that this production company has very, very strict timelines. I mean, rushing isn't even a word for it. Feats of implausibility would be the best thing. Wanting 6 months worth of work done in a day is not even remotely out of the question for these people to demand. And so they're like, we asked them to do this in one day, and I was like, well, obviously what's going on here is that person's... I looked at their portfolio, and I'm like, well, that piece, that looks like it's got some time into it. That probably took this person. They've probably been working on that for years, let alone, weeks and months and days. You want them to turn something around in 4 hours. And not a lot of people are used to working like that. And I am. I don't like it. I prefer to be able to spend a lot of time on it, but at the same time, I like to get things done. And so doing things fast is a skill that needs to be balanced with doing things well. And you can ask somebody, well, what do you want? You want it done fast, or you want it done good? You can give them that attitude. But you know what their answer is going to be? Well, we want it both. We want it done fast, and we want it done good, or we want to pay somebody else to do it. And obviously I'm not getting paid for this, and you might not be getting paid for what you're doing. And if it's a labor of love, it's a different story. You spend as much time as you want on it. You spend as much time as you need on it, But, at the same time, you do want to get stuff done. Especially if you're making a game. Because if you're making a game, you quickly realize the first thing when you go to decide, hey, I'm going to make a game. I've never done this before. Your first thought is, yeah, I'm just going to, maybe I'm going to do something kind of simple, and we'll make it quick. We'll make a fast game. Yeah. Dude, there ain't no such thing. I mean, there's people that have made, turn things around pretty quick with some relatively simple yet great ideas, innovative ideas. But for the rest of us, there's no such thing as doing this fast. I mean, my game's pretty much a simple shooter. It's not a lot going on. Just multiplayer, co-op, shoot, kill, earn, get stuff. And 6 years later, we still ain't done. So doing these things fast as well as good is something that you should strive for, whether or not you are pro or not. Pros already know how to do this. I'm going to hit V and make a bigger brush here. Hide the head. Actually, let's just hide everything but the neck. Control Shift I when I got it selected, and H. Yeah, I mean, this isn't taking too long, and I'm actually enjoying it. I don't know how fun it is for everybody else. Probably going insane. Might even have stopped watching by this point, and I'm just talking to an empty room. The topic of today's meeting is attendance in the meetings, and you're in an empty room, right? So we go hit U to bring up everything else. Let's isolate the head. Hold V to get it selected. Control Shift I to invert it. Then hit H to hide it. And let's go ahead and fan out. I'm going to shrink my brush a little bit here. Get rid of that little white spot because that makes a bit of a Rorschach. That's one thing I always see whenever I see mirrored stuff. I always see a Rorschach in there. And I'm not talking, you know, hey, I'm Rorschach, I'm gonna cut your dog's head off. You know, I'm talking, you know, the shape, the old, actually, I'm going to, in this case, because I'm painting through the eyes here, and I could hit the back of the head, like, if I go like this, I can hit the back of the head like that. In this case, when you need to turn that off, go to fall off based on angle, and now if I paint here and I miss, it doesn't put it on the back of the head. That's an important thing. So now I can paint pretty freely just across this, and I kind of want to give him some lash type direction. For his eyes, so it's a little bit darker there. Alright, let's try to get his ears. If there was something like a feature that I could, you can see here that I'm having issues painting there, and that has to do with this fall off based on the angle. Now that I can, so that's when that can come back and bite you. Is that some of these pieces of geometry are out of that fall off angle, and even though it's going to be stretched in there, at least I can get down my base color, and that's what I need. But if there was a feature ability that I could request, or somebody could request from Autodesk, it would be this. Watch this. I wish that I could go Alt-T, hit Q, and that this would show only what I didn't have hidden. Okay? This would only show my visible stuff. I really wish I could get that feature. I also wish that I could select faces here, hide them, and it would work when I came back to here. The ability to paint here and hit Alt-T and then paint here is a wonderful thing, but it would be also extremely useful if we could select faces in both of these two spots and hide them and unhide them and just have that work like I feel like it should, or like I think everybody should feel like it should. That would be a great thing. So, feature request. Okay, so I'm getting kind of close, but I'm not really liking this cheek area too much. I'd like that to be a little bit more evened in tone. Going pretty light. If I have a weakness in my painting abilities, it would definitely be that I have very hard time going left and right perfectly. My hand just doesn't allow for it. I can go diagonally in both directions, actually really nice, but usually when I go horizontally, I kind of I twist my whole body so that my arm is still going diagonally. And if you're like that too, then just try to contort your body. So I get that a little bit more evened out. Let's see if there's another spot on here that I can use to mix it up a little bit. Let's get that line there. get rid of that little splotch. Let's get rid of some of this splotching. See, now is when I'm just kind of arbitrarily blotching everything in, and it may not, you know, look great like fur. I'm also, again, at not a high enough resolution for this to really thoroughly matter, but from a distance it's gonna look pretty rat furry. Okay, up close it's not too bad. It looks ratty and matty, and that's what I want. I want it to look like he's a totally scrubby creature, dirty, filthy, smelly rat. I mean, what's the saying? Yeah. Dirty rat. See? Yeah, see? This is how it's gonna work, see? You're gonna paint me like a dirty rat. You'll never take me alive. Yeah. I don't know why I always find that so entertaining. The other one I find really entertaining is George Takei. I love that guy. I think he's a freaking genius. I do like Shatner. I gotta hand it to the cast of Star Trek. I'm not super big on the show. I do love sci-fi, but it was just a little too before my time. I mean, it was going on. It was on TV when I was growing up, but I was more into cartoons, you know, cartoon sci-fi. Plus, I'm a lot more into like violence and hardcore stuff, and that those things are a little they're a little G-rated for me. Little Mr. Rogers-y, you know, a little too clean. I really liked Starship Troopers, the first one. I thought that movie was excellent. I thought it was cheesy and campy, and I didn't like the actors that much, or at all, to be honest with you. I thought Johnny Rico was a little too clean looking, and everything was just too clean in terms of that, but I understand it. It's the satire of it and all that, but oh dude, the special effects and the gore were just right up my alley. I love it. That's exactly what I need from a movie. I need heavy levels of gore, done really gory, and combined with really good special effects. Because I mean, I don't know, special effects hold up. I think they still hold up today. In 2013, I can go back and watch that movie, and I still think it looks pretty. I think it still looks pretty good. I'm talking specifically the bug action. I'm not talking any, you know, the cheesy football game, which was so stupid, and or any of that high school crap. I mean, the movie doesn't start for me until it starts right in the beginning when that one guy gets cut in half. I thought that was really cool. And then when they land, and then the violence starts and the blood and the gore. I'm a huge fan. Huge fan of that kind of stuff. And I didn't get a real good fix of that for a good number of years until a couple of movies came out. One, Dredd, the new Dredd. I really like that movie. Oh god, it's good. It's violent. Love it. And let me hide that real quick. Oops, when did that happen? Why did everything else get unhidden? That's weird. I might have hit U. U is unhide, by the way. I don't know if I actually said that. Dredd, good movie. Good movie. And The Cabin in the Woods. If you haven't seen that movie and you like special effects, you've got to see that movie. At first, my buddy told me, hey, this is a great movie, dude. I was like, alright, I'll take your word for it. I'll go check it out. And I started watching it, and I was like, this isn't great. This is the same crap I've seen 1,000 times over. I don't know what he's talking about. Whatever. shut it off. Come back next day. Did you watch it? Yeah, kinda, but I didn't really like it. I didn't finish it. He's like, what? You didn't finish it? I'm like, no. What are you talking about? It's the same crap I've seen like a million times. A cabin in the woods. They're out in the woods. They're teenage angst. And he's like, you didn't get to the end, did you? No, I didn't get anywhere near the end. He's like, just trust me. And I watched it, and I got to the end, and oh, what pure satisfaction that a gore hound and a sci-fi hound and a horror junkie could ever ask for. That movie delivered. It delivered on every level, but unfortunately it doesn't start until about 30 minutes from the end. The rest of the movie is a total waste. I mean, that's just my opinion. It's good, you know, to build up to that, but I don't want to ruin it. But it's got Left 4 Dead characters in it. Oh shit, I just ruined it. There's really nothing for me to say about what I'm doing here, unfortunately. And that's just part of this. Doing these things can just be add tedium. Mind-numbing tedium. I enjoy it, but there isn't a whole lot to do. So I'm at an hour here, and I'm going to stop, and then when I come back, I am going to, I guess, start running the details. I think I'm pretty good with the fur. It's laid on okay. It's looking real scrubby, and that is part of what I wanted. Like I've said over and over again, it needs to look all matted and nasty, and I think I've accomplished that. He looks like he's just fresh from the sewer, and that's a good thing. So let's pump him back down to his original size there. And unfortunately, like a idiot, I didn't even realize I was doing that. You guys were probably screaming at me. I did the whole thing on the tail, but no big whoop. The tail was only a minor thing. So what I can do here is just erase the tail. I don't really need to do that, but I'll erase the tail. If I alt click this point here next to the tail and then show the fur as well, I can right click and say merge visible. Right, and then I can alt click that again. Actually, that doesn't work, but if I click on diffuse up here, I can rename it by double clicking it. I'm going to just name that fur, and then I'll make a new layer, call that tail, hit 1, I already got my color in there, just boost my brush, and there we go, fixed. That could have been a huge disaster if I had done that on layers that were already painted with other stuff, so try to pay attention to this. Unlike me, I was rambling, I wasn't looking. Okay, but we're good. You can see it's screaming at me to save. Let's show the normal map. The normals for the fur aren't in there yet. Those are just going to be simple tangent space, toned real back, and stuff like that. So again, I'm stopping the video here. This was part 4, and a good majority of the time was spent painting that fur down, I suppose. So I will see you on the next one.